Hi, and welcome back to Hunt Hill at Home. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you all are doing well. Today's topic is animal tracks, and I'm going to be showing you some tracks and giving you a few pointers on how to help identify those tracks. But first, our joke of the day. I could not find a joke that was specifically about animal tracking. So I found a joke about deer, which are an animal that you might want to track. So, what do you call a deer with no eyes? No idea. All right, so with animal tracking, make sure that anytime you go out tracking, that you let someone know where you're going to be and when you expect to be back, just to stay safe. But moving on, imagine I was walking through a forest and I found a track like this in the snow. How would I go about figuring out what kind of track this is? Well, what I like to do is I like to follow the 3 P's of tracks. And the 3 P's are place, which means where did you find it? What kind of habitat was that animal in? Pattern, which means what sort of pattern were the tracks making? How were they clumped together? What did they look like? Where did the animal seem like it was going? And finally, print, which is actually looking at the characteristics of the print and trying to figure out what sort of animal could make that sort of print. Now, right now is an awesome time to be doing some animal tracking because there are lots of opportunities for animals to leave tracks. Tracks don't always happen. They happen when the ground is wet. So if you've got mud or if you've got snow that can hold on to the tracks. If you've got dry areas like dry sand, it's not going to stick around there very long. So April is about the best time to be doing this tracking. So I found this track in the snow and I want to know what it is. I'm going to start with my first P, which is the easiest one to figure out, which is my place. So already I know it was in the snow, and let's imagine we found it in the middle of a forest in the snow. So I'm going to use my science journal and I'm going to be writing these things down. So I wrote on top of my page, it's a mystery print. And for the place, I'm going to write forest. You can also draw a forest in here or whatever you want. This is your journal. You do it in a way that will help you remember what you're doing. So I've got my forest here. I drew a little forest, and I also wrote the word forest. So what else do I know about it? One thing I can do is look at the pattern that it makes. And I've got some little examples that I'm going to use to make some patterns. So I've got 2 different types of cards here. This circular card I'm going to use to represent a front foot, and this one I'm going to use to represent a hind foot or the back foot. So many animals will make what is called a straight pattern, and they're straight walkers. So a straight walker will be alternating feet. So it'll put down its left foot and its right front foot at the same time and then alternate. The cool thing about this is that when they put them down, the next step is going to be right on top of their front foot. So their left hind foot is going to land on top of or nearly on top of where their left front foot had been. So if this pattern continues, you're going to see a straight walking pattern which looks a little like a zigzag. The animals that do this sort of walking pattern are pretty familiar to us. We see a lot of them in our day-to-day lives. Your cats and your dogs probably walk like this. And if you've got a cat, they walk exactly on top of where their front foot had been. So if a cat steps on you in one place, they're going to step on you in that same exact place with their hind foot. I know this from experience. Now, that's not the only way an animal can walk. Some animals are waddlers. Waddlers move a lot slower than our straight walkers. And they put their weight down all on one side. So they might start out with all of their weight on one side like this. So their left foot and their left hind foot are down. And then they're going to move and shift all their weight to the opposite side. And they'll continue on like that. Waddling back and forth. This is what the pattern looks like from above. Now these animals are not fast. They kind of lumber around pretty slowly. Most animals that walk like this do not need to be fast. They're animals like bears that have very few predators, or things like porcupine that have ways to keep animals from attacking them. We also have animals that hop and jump and leap. Those ones are really fun to see. The hoppers start out by putting both front feet down. Once they have their two front feet down, they're going to take their two hind feet and they're going to actually bring them forward and in front of their front feet and to the sides. So it'll continue out like this. Here's the hopping pattern from above. This is hard to do. There we go. So animals that do this are usually things like rabbits and squirrels that can hop around. Some rabbits, when they're going fast, have their front 2 feet kind of separated like this, and it looks like they're almost galloping when they do that. The last type of pattern you might see is a bounding pattern. With bounders, they will have their feet all land in about the same spot. So they're going to bound from one spot and then land with their front feet together and their back feet almost right on top of them. Then they'll bound from this spot and they'll go all the way to there. I'll show you that from above. So you're going to see kind of just blobs of feet and then no blobs for a little while. The animals that do this kind of walking are usually related to weasels or weasel-like. Things like pine martens and mink and other sorts of weasels will do this. Now, coming back to my track that I found, I'm going to look closely at it and I'll find that this uses a straight walking pattern. That, again, is the one that kind of makes a zigzag. Like this. So, on my science journal, I'm going to write down that it's a straight walking pattern, and I might draw a little bit what it looks like. So the last step is to look really closely at our print. what things you want to notice with your print is how large it is in general. You might want a ruler to help you with this. So I've got my ruler. I'm going to measure across at the widest point and see what that is. So that's about 2¼ inches. So I can write that down. And I also want to notice things like, does it have claws? This one does not have any claw marks in it. That's important. You can notice the shape of the foot pad. I notice in this foot pad there are kind of 3 lumps at the very bottom here, where it goes up and down and then up and down again. And then 2 lumps on the top, where it goes up, down, up. So I'm going to draw that in my journal. Let's see if I can draw facing you. So I have on top, up, down, up, up, down, up. And then I have, for the toe pads, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they're pretty evenly spaced. So 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. So I have my print here. I want to compare it to other prints. At this point, that's where other people can help me. So I have this little booklet of tracks that can help me. You can also just look it up online. There's lots of helpful resources online. So already I'm thinking this is probably a dog or a cat. This looks a lot like the footprints that you see of your household pets, right? So I want to find out if it's a canine or a feline. So I opened up to our canine page here. And as I'm looking at it, I notice a few things. With all of the canines, I see claw marks on there. Now my print did not have any claw marks. I also notice that the shape of their foot, the very top, there's no divot in that very top. When I look back at my print, I notice that I have a little divot there. But they do have the same amount of toes. Now, if I switch and look at the felines, I see that none of these have any claws. That's because cats can retract their claws and they don't have to keep them out all the time. I also see that this one does have a divot in the very top, and it also has 3 lobes on the bottom where it goes up and down, up and down. So already I'm starting to feel like this might be a feline rather than a canine. Now you can also use your measurements and see what the measurement is. I measured in inches, and I'm realizing now that my guidebook measures in centimeters. So I'll have to get a different ruler to measure what it is in centimeters. But already I can tell that this is about the same as my bobcat. So I'm feeling pretty confident that I found a bobcat one. Now if you want to compare it to some other footprints that we have, this one is a wolf print, and it is far bigger than this bobcat print. So I could tell that it's definitely not a wolf. Then we've also got a fox print. A fox is very similar in size with its foot to the bobcat, but it's got the claws out. All right. Well, I hope that you have some fun taking a look at different tracks that you see outside or wherever you are exploring. Make sure that you stay safe and have a fun time. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow when we talk about identifying scat. Bye.